Hey guys, what's up? What's good? Welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Dammy Days back again with another video. If you've been on my channel for a while, I always talk about food in one way or the other. I love good food, but more importantly, I really do appreciate eating well. And what do I mean by eating well? Obviously eating well in taste and whatnot, but most importantly, what is good for your body. It's definitely been a journey for me, but I'm quite passionate about putting good food in your body. I believe it comes out and expresses itself in various forms, externally, internally. So I think it's super important that we are all intentional about what goes through this mouth of ours. And I'm definitely not where I want to be, but I want to share some of the tips that have worked for me in being able to maintain some good habits in my diet up until now. You would have probably heard before that a good percentage of what your health or what your body looks like depends on what you eat. About 70 to 80% is down to the foods that we put in our mouth, and then the rest can be topped up with exercise. So really you can hack a good percentage of it if you eat well. As a pharmacist, I come across many disease states regularly. Amongst many other factors, I think food is definitely one of the ones up there that help to cure disease states, but most importantly, help to prevent them from even happening in the first place. So let's get into some of the things that have worked for me, and I hope it works for you as well. And please share your own tips as well, and I'll be sure to try and implement them. I am all for food that tastes good. I'm all for a balanced diet. The different classes of foods, and they are all important in creating a balanced diet. So it's not about just, completely taking out one class of food so that you see a result the next day. We're talking about a lifestyle. We're trying to build a lifestyle here. So although I use the word diet, it's not a short-term thing. These are tips that would hopefully help you, that you can hopefully engage in to maintain good eating habits overall for a good portion of your life. One of the first categories I'm going to mention is reducing sugar. Sugar is of the enemy. Sugar is not good for you. There are really 0 to none benefits with eating sugar. Thinking of ways in which you can reduce your sugar intake is super important. So one of the ways I reduce sugar is by reducing how much junk I take in. And when I mean junk, how much sweets, biscuits, chocolate. I've not been successful in taking sugar out of my diet. It's definitely a long way. So for me, it's kind of like where the areas that I know that I find difficult to reduce my sugar intake. For example, baking. I just, once in a while, I bake more than I thought I ever would. So for me, it's kind of like other areas that I can easily cut off. I cut it off so that whilst I'm still trying to manage the other areas that sugar is infused in my diet, I'm not truckloading it with other variations of sugar. When you have these high sugar intake things, what they do is spike you up and you crash. And what then happens is that your body then seeks more sugar. So the more you have these things, the more you would crave for more. So you kind of have to put a hard stop to it in one way or the other, whether that is fizzling it out, but you have to be very intentional, because if you just depend on still indulging in it whilst trying to reduce it, it's really going to be difficult. We already intake natural sugars, so if you have a high intake of fruit, that is a means of having natural sugars that go into your body. I love to host, so I love to have people over and cook, and I always like to try different recipes. And one of the ones I tried recently was a mango lassi. This is something I indulge in every now and again because I just really like it, and I usually buy it from the shop. So I said, let me try and make my one. And you would find with not just something like this, with most things, if you try and make a version of what you buy in store, the chances that it wouldn't taste exactly like what you find in store is fairly high. And that's because the store ones have heaps of sugar. And for me to get to the level of the taste that I would usually have in store that I'm used to, I had to add lots of sugar. And that was just an eye-opener to how much sugar I intake with, just this drink that I buy. Most drinks that are not water are infused with sugar. So where you can, when you can, please let's just be drinking water. So generally try and reduce your sugar, and one of the ways you can do that is by cutting down or completely taking out your sweets, your chocolates, or just very occasionally indulging in them. And the next category for me is trying to reduce as much processed foods as possible. So this is junk food. So this is like saturated fat. So all your takeaways. I'm an advocate for cooking when you can. Cooking takes a lot of time. So it'll be important for you to meal prep or find recipes that, you know, are quick to stir up. But processed foods are from the pit of hell. Processed meat, so that's your ham, your bacon, your salami. I try not to indulge myself in processed meat. If I'm eating meat, then I'm getting it like from the butchers. You want to try and reduce that, and also it helps to reduce your salt intake as well. Processed meat in general doesn't really bear good fruit. So you want to try and substitute processed meat with actual real meat where you can. Healthier options in the shops may be expensive, but it's more expensive to pay for a hospital bill later in life. So I'm Nigerian, and my meals are heavily influenced by carbs, because I'm like, what else am I going to eat if it's not potato, rice, beans, pasta? But the thing about carbs is that carbs are technically sugars because your body breaks them down to sugars later. So you do need to be aware of how much carbs that you're intaking. One of the ways I've found to reduce my carbs is by reducing my rice intake. And I do that by substituting it with other grains. And one of the grains that I've found to be super, super helpful is bulgur wheat. Now, when you talk about, you know, these habit changes, you don't want a change where you feel like you're dying, right? You want changes that, you know, you can, like I said, it's a lifestyle that you can infuse. So you might not like in the beginning, but you know, okay, yeah, I can see myself, you know, eating this. You don't want to start and stop. Bulgur wheat is one substitute that I can definitely see myself eating for a long period of time. It is also a grain like rice. It has a higher nutritional value. It's high in fiber as well. So what I do now, I can't remember the last time I cooked jollof rice. I always cook jollof bulgur wheat instead. And if you get coarse or extra coarse bulgur, it basically has the same texture as rice. Yes, it might taste a bit different, but really at the end of the day, it's pretty much the same. And for the health benefits, I would rather take a little slight change, right? Trying to vary your grains that is not just rice, especially white rice, because again, that is refined, that is processed. Another area that I have been able to swap around from the norm is what types of food you eat for breakfast. Breakfast is one of the most important meals of the day. And it's funny that the foods that have been marketed to be had for breakfast aren't a great way to start your day. So again, going back to sugars and processed foods, things like cereals, things like, you know, breakfast bars, things like English breakfast or a ham sandwich or a bacon sandwich, all of those things spike your sugar levels super high to start the day with, and then you just crash. So what I've found and what I've grown to infuse in my routine, and now like, because I've definitely seen a big difference when I eat these alternatives instead in my energy levels, and that's because they are high in fiber. So rather than introducing things that are refined and processed as breakfast, I go with things like oats instead, if possible, like whole grain rolled oats. I used to really dislike avocado, but I just had to find a way that works for me till I started liking it without anything. So usually I'll put some salt, put some black pepper, put a drizzle of honey, and that makes avocado really, really nice for me. So avocado sandwich or just avocado and egg, I find gives me such a good boost of energy in the morning. And because these are high in fiber, fiber helps, firstly, it helps your bowel movement to be steady and just helps to clear your bowels, but also helps to keep you full for longer compared to these other things that are seemingly should be breakfast foods. But what they do is counterproductive because you take a high intake of sugar, you get hungry again, you take another high intake of sugar, and that means your sugar levels are just constantly high. I also rarely eat bread. One of my chokehold at the moment is agege bread. If you know, you know. I don't really eat it like that, thankfully. So I've started noticing that I could just do without buying it. It's just once in a while, you're just like, oh, let me just buy some agege bread. When I'm talking about all of these things, like I said earlier, you don't want to feel like you're starving yourself of anything. Slow progress. So I can slowly see myself completely getting rid of bread from my diet because I rarely eat it. I just kind of buy it when I know I'm cooking a food that would go well with bread. But if I'm actually a bit more intentional about it, I know that bread can be something that is, either non-existent or extremely minimal in my diet. So all of those type of things you should be aware of. These are the type of intentionalities we're talking about. Bread is such a huge part of our diet these days, whether that's a sandwich, whether that's toast, whether that's, whatever it may be, French toast, bread is infused in one way or the other in our diet. So keeping it to a minimal would be wise, because you are going to probably find it somewhere that you have to eat bread, whether that's a sandwich or whatnot. Yeah. So substitutions is super key. Substitutions is one thing that has definitely helped me to be able to maintain some of the good habits that I've been able to have up until now. So finding substitutions that I like, substitutions that aren't that bad, and there's so many options for substitutions. You don't have to go with just the examples that I've given. You just need to do your research and try. For example, with the milk, trying to reduce dairy in my diet meant that I had to, cut out drinking full milk. And I tried so many different types of milk out there. I remember from like uni, I always bought like different milk and I just wasn't feeling them. So I always went back to full milk until I finally got my hands on vanilla soy, which I do need to check how much sugar is in that thing because it does taste good. But the whole point of what I'm trying to say is that there would be an option. There is many healthier options out there. You just need to be intentional about finding them, intentional about trial and error and seeing what works for you. And remembering at the end of the day, it's what is beneficial to your body, not mine, not the next person's. It is obviously moving about. Exercising is super key. So for me, one of the ways I balance it as well is also by exercising. So I know that the other areas that I'm still yet to catch, that I'm still yet to figure out a better way to eat in that regard. I just make sure that I'm trying to exercise as much as possible so that I'm able to, combat the effect of some of these things that I've not been able to hack yet. And finally, how you eat as well, I find is also quite important. I found the other day that there's certain mixtures and smoothies that you're not actually meant to be like dibbling and dabbling with because it can cause issues. I didn't know that. That definitely, I think it's weird because I used to drink lots of smoothies, but I think after I watched a couple of videos on that, I just naturally reduced my smoothie intake because I'm not about to be researching what I can mix or what I can't mix. So I just try and stick with water. And the time that you eat is so key. Whether that is your last meal of the day, I'm definitely trying to be a lot stricter. I don't like abs exercises. I don't like core exercises. So I really need to be attentive to my food and the time that I eat if I don't want to be doing crunches every day. And also when you eat in the morning, giving your body a bit of time in the morning before you eat has also been proven to help many things such as your glucose levels, such as your focus levels. Some people call it intermittent fasting. There are different ways you do it, but just generally controlling when you eat and how you eat is also good for the body. So your body has time to rest from digestion and to, just not be on overdrive all the time. All in all, there's so many, and it keeps coming out with the access to the internet that we have these days. So many opinions on the types of food you should eat and whatnot. Just make sure, like I said, that you do your research about what you're consuming. You take a look at what you're buying and, be aware of what you're consuming. And if you're okay with it, then that's fine. Food is also medicinal. So you want to make sure that your whole diet plan isn't just based on what your tongue thinks tastes nice, but what is good for your body. I hope some of these tips were helpful. If you have any that you feel has helped you as well, please share with us as well. I would love to read them and try them out. And most importantly, if you have some good recipes, I am all here for it. I will be there at your house willing to try. Send them to me. I want to try it. And let's all be healthy in our bodies together. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in my next one. Goodbye.